So the Sparta system really has three components. The first is scan, the second is diagnosis, the third is prescribe. There's really three scans that we use. The first is a jump scan, the second is a balance scan, and the third piece is a plank scan. They can all be done together because they each take only 60 seconds, or they can be done all at once, which is around 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much rest you need between. And so the jump scan is really a two-leg jump, jumping as high as you can. We're not looking for who jumps the best or who jumps the highest. We're just looking for a dynamic process that allows us to evaluate how you move. And jumping in our research tended to be one of the more basic skills. So it took out the learning effect. And so as a result, anybody can do it as a means of assessing how do you move dynamically. The second scan that we use is a balance test, and that tends to be used for fall prevention or coming off an injury. How well is that injury progressing? And also in some cases, head trauma. How am I pre-post concussion? The third piece is a plank scan. And the plank scan is unique in that it really allows us to key more in on the trunk or the upper body injuries, which often are forgotten. Certainly most injuries start from the lower body up because we all do interact in a place called Earth, which has gravity. And so gravity really makes that ground interaction vital. But energy does flow up to the upper body, and that's where those injuries start to happen. So we want to make sure we have a balance of looking at something dynamic, which is the jump, looking at something that is both balanced and somewhat cognitive, or the medical term being vestibular, and that's the balance piece. Where the last piece is also different, the plank, because that's looking at trunk and upper body. And so that suite of scans together really provides a complete picture for the individual. And a lot of times, because it's more sensational, people will gravitate towards something dynamic like the jump. But we can get as much, if not more, insights from the balance test as well as the plank scan. And the scan piece, the heart of that is really these filters we've set up for the hardware, and making sure that only standardized good jumps, good balance, good planks, only those standardized trials are allowed into the database. Once that scan is completed and the information is in the database, step 2 of our system, which is the diagnosis, that kicks in. And the diagnosis takes these individuals' raw data points that have been filtered, to make sure that they're standardized. It takes those points and it says, okay, let's relate this to other peers, whether that's age, ethnicity, sport, activity, injury history, and it gives you a diagnosis of what you need as an individual. And the way it's provided is what's called a T-score. And a T-score is really a number on the bell curve, 50 being the middle of that bell curve. And then in either direction is based on, the standard deviations away from the mean, from the average. And so once you're provided this, okay, how do I compare to my peers? Once you're provided this diagnosis, the third and final piece of the Sparta system is the prescription. Because there's a very strong trend right now of providing information to the individual, but we're all left wanting with, okay, now what? What do I do with this information? And the prescription is really the piece probably that excites me most, and it's gathering what every individual's done at our customers and at training ground, and takes all that information and says, okay, how has that worked out? How has that rehab plan, how has that mobility or stability program, how has that changed an individual's diagnosis? And from that, we're able to prescribe to each individual via ranking what the best approach is they use for every condition. So if you only have 20 minutes, what's the one thing I need to do every week to stay healthy? If you have 40 minutes, you might take the top 2 or 3, and so on. As professional athletes and organizations we work with, they can maybe do the top 10 because it's their job. But for those of us that are civilians, right, we're all limited by time. And so just tell me exactly what I need for the time I have available. And that's where technology, comes in. We're not guessing at what you need. We're not hoping this will work. We've got really clear insights that have now been published in medical journals around here's what you need and here's how that changes your force profile. Really utilizing all three of those gives a very unique picture, a snapshot, signature, if you will, for every individual.